Hello there, everybody. It is Duck Designs. Today we are back doing another course review, taking a look at another one of my subscribers' courses. Today we are taking a look at Noah's Lakes 4. I believe this is from a newer-ish designer. So, don't waste no time today getting into things. Let's see what tees. We have 5 tee sets, 7,800 yards, pretty long. Pins, we have 1 pin. I would like to see at least 4 pins on any course. Let's check out the course details really quick. Green speed is fast, so we'll see how that plays. I usually never go into fast. I always stay medium fast at the max. It's just you have to keep very flat greens to be able to work with anything up there in the fast range. Alright, hopping straight on in. Let's see what we got with our little flyover. Really need to get a controller just for these flyovers because, man, can it be tough sometimes. Alright, so as I was saying, I believe this is a newer designer. So today we're going to be giving just some more general pointers instead of our usual, like, very nuanced tips and stuff. So, first things first, just starting on our plot of land. It's not a terrible plot of land, I'll say. The one thing I will say that is really weird about this is the beach plot of land. So you've got this whole one side of the map that is all shore. Uh, Typically, the way that you do this map is you have the shore on this side of the map. You see how you got shore all the way around this entire place except for right here. This is actually the side that you need the shore on because it gets rid of this ugly looking whatever this is and makes it look a lot better. Makes it feel more like an island or a cliffside like you would like it to be. Other than that, a lot of making courses comes from making really good starting plots. Uh, just look up some videos online of PGA 2K23 plots, designer plots. B101 Design just released a video not too long ago of a competition that's taking place, and there's some good ideas of some plots there. Usually with plots, you kind of want to think about what you're going to do beforehand. Like this is obviously an island design. The one thing I will say about this is it needs to be a little bit more filled out. It seems a little bit bland as you're kind of looking around here. The only thing you've really got is trees, and I will say that this is all one type of tree. I can tell almost immediately. I would use at least 3 different types of trees when you're filling in forest like this. One type can just get very bland and look the same color. Also, if you're going to have trees like this, like you see how you've got this big open area over here with nothing in it. If you're going to have trees, you want to have trees be in most of these areas. Like now this, when I come to this hole, it's going to be very jarring to just have a big open area out of nowhere all of a sudden. All right. I'll get to some of this a little bit later on, but this is obviously a no-go. You never want to have something like this. You never want to have anything like this, but we'll kind of get to that as we go down. I believe this was a fantasy-esque course. I don't think it was 100% fantasy, is what I was told. So let's get straight on down here. All right, so from the tee, we have a blind tee shot. As you guys know, I'm not a fan of blind tee shots. I like to see the fairway and I like to see the bunkers from the tee. I think it makes for a lot more interesting holes, especially in this game where you want to have stuff to look at. There's nothing to look at here. It's just an empty open area. Other than that, uh, I would think a little bit more about your design. This kind of just feels like you just placed bunkers however where you felt it. Having bunkers, maybe 2 bunkers over here, and then maybe one up here to kind of create a little snaking fairway through here to kind of give a bottleneck for your players or something like that would be a lot better. I'll say be careful too. I don't know how deep these exactly are, but these might be a little bit too deep for your players. Like this one right here looks extremely deep. Want to make sure your bunkers aren't too deep so your players can actually get out of them reliably, but I'm not sure if they are or not.
And this one's about 120 yards.
Alright, so we got a little water area. Uh, One thing I'll say about this is I'm gonna have to hit it in here just to make sure there is actually water here. but don't use falls like this. If you're going to use falls like this right here would not be moving this fast. There's no chance on earth this little bitty stream would be moving this fast. You have to make this river thinner, or this waterfall thinner, so that it looks like it's moving slower. When you've got it like this, it looks like it's flying. Also, just another thing, when you do add rivers and stuff, you usually want to have them coming from somewhere. So you want to have like a pond over here that is then flowing down into, and then maybe have this end either flow into like a drain outlet or out onto the course. You can build drain outlets pretty easily. It's usually you just put an object in here that kind of looks like a drain, and it can make it be realistic pretty quick. But I'm gonna hit a real quick shot into this water just to make sure that there's actually water in here. Okay, there is. That's something some people can make mistakes of, is they use those instead of actual. They use the waterfalls instead of actual water, and you can end up in it, and it won't actually take your shot back. For our green, obviously these greens have one pin. You want to design your greens for at least 2 or 3 pins. Like right here, I've got one pinnable area. That's it. This whole front part of the green is virtually useless. There's really no point in having any of this if it's going to be this sloped. Maybe make a tier up here or something like that to give this part of the green some use. I mean, I guess realistically I could hit a shot into this and then have it like ride down, but it's just not a realistic type of green or anything you're really ever going to see. It doesn't even play well for a fantasy. This is what I was meaning by fast green speeds I don't like. That seemed like a pretty slow little chip right there. Normal greens it would have settled like right around here somewhere. So yeah, especially if you are a newer designer, I would stick to medium green speed. I wouldn't even go to medium fast if you're a new designer, because it's a lot more difficult to design your greens and keep them playable. Alright, 2 here. This is the one up on the big old mounds. Don't do this even if you are building a fantasy course. You want to have the mounds at least look realistic if you're going to build a fantasy. If you're going to do something like this, it needs to kind of be like the theme of the place. Like, say you have these big things and you have big old rocks around them and make it look like really big cliffs or something like that. But having them in the state that they are right now just doesn't work. You could make these work, as I said, by putting rocks all around them, making this look more like a cliff instead of just big old circular mounds of dirt. Also, again, I can't see the green. It would be really nice to be able to see this green from the tee box, be able to see these bunkers and stuff. In terms of your green, I really don't mind it that much. I don't like how this little part of the green goes into the bunker, though. And I would have liked to see some fairway wrapping around this. You've got some very interesting lows over here off the green, and same thing on this side. That kind of pushes some players' balls down, but I would have liked to see it be fairway so players can actually chip back up on a little bit more reliably. But really not that bad of a hole. I do like the 2 bunkers in front, and I think just some fairway around here will do it a lot better. Green shape, not terrible. I don't really like how jagged this edge is, but I don't mind all of these little squiggles out here. Makes it a little bit more interesting. Now, this is one of those holes where it's going to be a kind of a guess on club. Might have been a little too soft right there. Or maybe not. I do like some really big rise holes out here. Makes it very interesting. Again, this is a problem with fast greens. Your green right here slopes front to back, and it's a long par 3. The chances of me getting a ball to stay on this green on a long par 3, especially to this pin, you're not going to be able to sit by this pin ever coming in from over 200 yards out. Your ball, even if I landed right here, I'd be halfway down the green. You want to make sure that your pinnables, your pins are like reachable and you can get a ball by them, because if I can't ever get a ball by this pin, it's realistically just a bad pin. Like, it's not how it should be played, in my opinion at least. Alright, getting into some of the trees now. Alrighty. Now, personally, I'll say I don't really like the fairway running down into here just because it's very unrealistic. I know it's a fantasy course, but this is something to be extremely a pain in the ass to mow and take care of. Really not that bad. Again, though, I can't see the bunkers from the tee. I would like to be able to see the bunkers here. I think it'd be a very nice visual on the inside line to actually see these bunkers kind of sticking out. And that's kind of one of the disadvantages to making these bunkers so low is that it's very hard to see them. And I'll go ahead and say it. Don't use circle bunkers for every bunker on your course. When you use circle bunkers like this over and over and over and over, it becomes very repetitive, and it's also very obvious that you're a new designer when you do that. You want to have some shapes, some contours in your bunkers. That doesn't mean don't go into the menu and select the predetermined shapes. You want to use the spline tool to create your own shapes, because when you use the shapes that the game gives you, everybody who's played this game for a long time knows that those are those like regular shapes that everybody uses. So it's very obvious again that you're a new designer if you use those shapes. You want to always be using the spline tool to make greens, to be making fairways, to be making everything. And I think you did that for your fairways and your greens. I think you used the spline. I will say though, for your fairways, it may have been your design style out here just to have straight, kind of more squared off fairways, but I would like to see some curves in the fairway and some, like right here, you've got these two bunkers right here. It would be really nice to have this fairway line come up, cut in, and then cut back out and around, and then come up to this bunker and then cut back in. It makes the hole look better. You've got just this, I mean, it looks like a landing strip, like I could put a plane out here. When you've got the curves in the fairway and the contours, you can add in nice hills and nice raises and really make it feel like a golf hole. Now, I'll say in terms of this hole, I do like bunker placements. Bunker placements are nice right here. Don't really care too much for this bunker, but it does add a little bit of character in an otherwise very empty area. Terrible shot right there. Still works out though because the fairway is so big. Really long hole though. All right, let's take a look at this green. I don't like this. If you're gonna have fairway touch your green, you might as well go ahead and run it up into here and make it look smooth. Like you see how right here you've got rough that runs into the green through the green. You want to have this come around the green and caress it, make it feel a little bit more realistic and like it's actually meant to be there. When you have lines that just kind of go straight through stuff like this, you can tell it's unprofessional and it's not done properly. Like right here, you've got this light rough that shoots up and then shoots straight into the green and then comes back out right here. Why not just bring this light rough line all the way up and around so your whole green is surrounded in rough? Because it's just, it looks unprofessional when you have these little cutouts like this and then like this right here. In terms of your green shape, I don't mind the shape. The contours are a little funny. I don't really like this front section right here. It's just two bowls in the front. That's really all it is. I don't mind this little kickoff right here, kind of a punch bowl type. Back at the green is completely useless, I'll say. I would have flattened this back part out. There's no reason to have people's balls rolling down into here. This one I kind of understand. It would have worked a lot better if you had fairway running into the green though, because it is such a long hole. Hitting a shot and running it up through these slopes would be pretty interesting, but it's kind of doesn't really feel like you're meant to do that with having all this be light rough and all this be light rough. So yeah, other than that, pin position's in a nice spot. I like that you're putting your pins in nice little flat central areas.
Maybe this one I'll kick to the left.
All right, getting on down there.
Nice. That was the club. Oh,
Not quite enough. Oh my god, I didn't even notice there were trees planted on the side of that big old hill over there. Alright, this is a little bit more what I was looking for in terms of I want to see the bunkers. You see how visual this bunker is on the right, how I can see it from the tee and it looks nice? That is how I wish all of your bunkers were out here. And it's because the back edge of this bunker is raised up higher than the front edge. And it gives it that visual. When you have these bunkers that are just kind of depressed in here, it doesn't give that visual to the tee. So from the tee, I can tell there's a bunker here. I can tell there's probably a bunker back left, probably a bunker right here. And I cannot tell that there's two more bunkers tucked back here, which isn't always the worst thing to have some hidden bunkers every now and again. Alright, taking a look at our green here, I can already tell our flag is on a yellow. You can see it's got the yellow tint to these lines. You never want to have a flag on a yellow, especially on fast greens. These are fast greens, so there's no chance the ball is holding if it's coming in from this direction. This thing's going straight into that bunker or straight into the rough over here. We'll see how it holds up though.
Not the cleanest swing, but
All right, so
still
this
a
would be a good test spot for this little slope here,
a little off
because
on
I
the
don't think
approach, but
personally there's
okay.
any way I'm getting a shot to hold. All right. Ooh. Hit
Yeah,
it
this
very
one's
fast. Not
very
what I was
sandy
meaning
in
to
this.
do. Been trying to work with the flop shot, but it's actually very difficult to do. That was about the only way.
The
Look at that.
sand
Look at
almost
that.
pulling
This
it
is
out.
why. This is exactly why I said you cannot
Missing it
have
there.
fast greens. Or you can, but you need to avoid them because in situations like this for new designers, it is extremely difficult and new designers will mess up. This right here is a dead hole. This is one of those holes that players will skip when they get to, and that's one of the biggest things you have to avoid as a new designer. Your holes have to be playable. At minimum, you have to be able to get in the hole and get out. And this, I think there is a chance that I can still get in this hole. I can find somewhere around here, or maybe possibly get to stick right here on this bunker shot. But when you have pins like this, it frustrates players. It pisses them off to the point to where they will quit because you got to realize we're living in the age of the internet and the age of
Putting
quick
now
gratification. When
on
people
the
get pissed off, they're
24th.
just going to go to another course and they're going to
Well,
play
let's
another course,
just try to stick this one.
especially when they're only
Double
5 holes
bogey.
in. It's okay sometimes to have some really difficult holes, like say on hole 16 or hole 17, where someone has already dedicated enough time into your course
All
where,
right.
okay, yeah,
And
now I just want to get through the difficult
setback.
holes so I can finish.
Just a setback.
But when you have a pin like this on hole 5,
Ooh, that's
people are
a
gonna quit.
jaunt at
People
the
aren't gonna
back.
finish this
Nicely
course.
played out of that sand.
And that's something I still
Teeing off
experience
now, long
as
drive.
an experienced designer. Like I still have people quit my courses sometimes because some of my holes will be frustrating, or they'll just end up hitting it in the water twice on a shot or something like that. All right, coming here to the next hole. I'll say it again. I don't like that I can't see the bunkers. We have a lot of blind shots out here. Personally, any course that has more than 50% blind shots is just a bad course, straight up, in my opinion. Like you,
Okay.
in my opinion, you have to be able to see
Nothing
more than
coming
half the
up
course from
here.
the tee box.
We're gonna need something special to
All
take it
right.
out.
Let's see what we got. See, I don't really understand your light rough. I feel like the light rough you've got out here is almost just the standard one that the course gave you. There's no rhyme or reason to why this light rough is here. Like, think about an actual golf course. Would they mow like this? Why would they have this big area back? Because I guess for people going long, but still, it's not a lot of rhyme or reason. Again, we're on fast. We're dealing with fast greens here. This entire green is orange and yellow. This is another unplayable green. You can't play this green reliably. It's just so messed up that you're not going to be able to like have an enjoyable round playing that hole.
That shot got a little
All right,
pushy.
so let's see. I'm
Yeah,
going to try to put
well,
one right above the
fairway
pin and see if it'll
sand.
even hold on the green. That was a terrible shot. It worked out though. See, this one isn't as bad as the last, but it's still not good. I mean, you can see there,
And
in my
big
opinion, there are no pinnable areas on the screen. There's nowhere a flag should sit on this entire green. You cannot have a green this sloped. I would avoid putting greens this close to water because it makes it to where you can't actually make the green's edge. The water decides where the edge is for you, and it creates this weird. You see how you got no gap of light rough here, larger gap here. That's because of the water. That's because you're too close to the water, and it does this. I don't know why, but it does. You can get rid of this doing by putting a water body below a water body. If you watch my bleeding bunkers tutorial, it'll show you how to kind of reclaim this bit of land right here. But other than that, I would always avoid putting anything like a green or a bunker or fairway even this close to water, just because it makes all these weird little jagged lines in here, and it doesn't let you actually place where you think you could place a green. Nothing else to say about this green really. It's just messed up.
ooh, gonna
Way
be
too big of a
close.
slope right there on the entire
Okay,
green.
currently 7 over. And teeing up now
Again,
with
I've said it a lot in my videos. Look at courses like the National. Look at, or hell, look at any course that the pros play. Study the greens out there. Find a greens sheet for that course, like Quail Hollow, Augusta National, anything like that, any big course. Look at a green sheet. Look how the greens are built. Think about why the architect put their tiers where they put them. There's always a rhyme or reason to the holes. When I'm playing out here at this course right now, there really isn't a lot of rhyme or reason to why the greens are doing what they're doing. Also, really quick, let me see this right here on the map. I kind of skipped it when I was hitting off the tee. You want to avoid stuff like that. Just raise this ground a little bit. It'll avoid this really weird, like, low spot right there. All right, move to the green. All right, this is where the fancy aspect kind of kicks in. I don't like how you just ended this right here. If you're this close to the green, just go ahead and touch, like, go ahead and, like, wrap this fairway all the way up. There's no point ending it a foot before the green. Get a nice little wraparound right here. You see how clean this fairway comes into the green up here? How nice and flush it is? You want to have that down here as well. Or anywhere else that you run fairway into the green. Like right here on this front edge, it's not as flush. It kind of comes here and then jaggedly shoots in like a 45+ degree angle. Bunkers, I honestly, I really hate the bunker placements for this par 5. I can't see them. Again, I hate not being able to see bunkers. They're way too deep, and it's 3 of the exact same bunker. You want to try to avoid repetition, especially on bunkers. It just doesn't look good. And that's part of the reason why I said earlier, don't use the circle shape over and over and over, because it makes these bunkers so repetitive. Again, with the greens, I think this is all yellow. Way too big of a slope for this. And what I was saying with the green design, you see how this entire green slopes all the way to the left, all the way over to this little shitty area over here? This is another par 5 where it's not going to hold shots coming in. Like, there's no chance you're getting a shot to hold. It's going to bounce and roll all the way off the back here. And that's just not fun for most players. You want to have a way that they can get to the pin from back there. At least I'm assuming if that's how you want to design this hole. If you want to make like a very difficult green that you actually can't stick a pin on, this is just not the way to do it. Maybe have a front tier up here and then a drop down to a lower tier over here and then another drop down off to a little feed off area in the back. It's just when you have these greens that are entirely just one slope going in one direction, they get very boring very fast. Like this whole green is just one slope. I think almost all the greens in the course we've come across so far have been one slope in one direction. You want to have some tiers in there, some little slopes, some hills, something to kind of add some creativeness. Like, you kind of had it in some of those other holes, but those slopes and like little raises and stuff you had, they didn't really make a lot of sense. They just kind of went in random directions. All right, good old hero shot hole right here. We always like to see something like this. These are some of my favorite holes where you just hit diagonal across the water and try to push your shot as far as you possibly can. So it looks like we need to hit it about go to about the 300 point to actually be able to get over right here. So let's do that real quick. In terms of the hole, not terrible. Again, this is why I don't bring my fairway line all the way down to the water, because the water line decides what your fairway line is. You didn't get to create this line. The water line got to create this line for you. And usually you'll want to avoid that because it can just create some weird looking jagged edges. And again, I just wanted to say, like, you need to have some rhyme or reason to your fairways. Your fairways, for the most part, have just been big lines, like big straight open areas. Like, for this, for example, I would have a curve come out around this and then maybe widen up right here and then maybe come a little thinner back here and then widen back up over here. It kind of creates that smooth looking architecture with your course instead of these really jagged lines, and then all of a sudden this line is straight and it just shoots through the bunker and it just doesn't look as professional as it could.
Nope, this one's hooked.
Oh, that's in the water right there, John.
Of course it had to go there.
But yeah, that's pretty much what you need to do. Is you need to add a little more character to these fairways. A lot of these fairways have just been, well, they've been straight and flat,
All right.
and there's not really a lot to them.
Shot.
And again, whatever this is that you're doing, where you're stopping this short, I don't know why you're doing it, but please don't do this. It's just, it doesn't look good. If you want to have a fairway style that stops short of your hole, you need to have it at least say 20, 30 yards out. Like, you could round this fairway off right here at the crest of this hill or the top of this hill and then have this area just kind of be empty area. That's okay. I understand that design style, but bringing it to where you're just a few feet or a few yards from the green and then just having this straight line cut across just doesn't look good. It doesn't look professional. Uh, and I'm going to go ahead and say it straight up with this green. This green is a bad green. Uh, the shape's not terrible. Your shapes haven't been awful. They haven't been clean. Like, you see how your edges can be a little bit jagged. You can kind of tell like spline point, spline point, spline point, spline point. You did a good bit right here and then a good bit right there. But I mean, you can tell that these are straight lines right here connected, and it looks a little bit ugly. Not only that, this green is just way, way, way too slopey. I mean, if we're looking at this whole green surface, we've got a pinnable area down here and a pinnable area up here. And not only do we only have two pinnable areas, this is dead flat and this is dead flat. You never want to have a dead spot on your green or a dead flat spot on your green. That's not something you're ever going to run into. It's just not fun to play, because if I get right here, it's just a straight putt every time. It's just not fun to play greens like that. This is just, again, one of those things where you have no rhyme or reason to the slopes on your greens. Like, if this were me and if I were just taking a look at the green from up top up here, I would have this be a slightly lower tier, just a little bit. I would probably put a ridge back here to kind of catch balls and to push them on the green. I would probably put another ridge kind of coming across here to separate this front area with this back area, and then maybe some tiny slopes over here to kind of move the balls around a little bit. So effectively, I've got a pinnable area back here, I've got a pinnable area over here, a slope right here to separate it, another pinnable area right here, and another pinnable area right here. So I have 4 pinnable areas for this green. The big reason why you can't do that on the screen at the moment is because it's way too slopey. You just need to take this entire green, flatten it out to one height, and then work from that height. I think your problem was here is you placed the green shape. This area over here was really low. This area over here was really high. And you didn't really think about equalizing or balancing those out. You just flattened this and then flattened this and called it a day. And there needs to be a little bit more thought into kind of how is this actually going to play for my players, because this is another one of those like really, really frustrating greens that some players may not even stick around to finish because of how difficult it is. All right, let's go ahead and get up there on the top
And setting up now for your 5th shot.
and attempt a little flop. A little bit too hard, but we'll see what the slope does. Brings us right down into a nothing over here. All right.
This putt is 9 feet away.
Straight shot.
Will work. And currently sitting at
All right.
9 over.
Just something I always avoid.
Number 9.
Never have. I mean, I can't say never, but most of the time avoid your front tees being higher in elevation than your back tees, because it creates this weird look where, why do I have a tee right in front of me higher than me? It feels odd. And also, again, I can't see the fairway. If you were to lower this tee and raise this tee, I could probably see the fairway right here and it looked a lot better. All right, we got a little dog leg here. Again, squared off fairways. I have not been a fan of the squared off fairways. And again, you see how right here you've got light rough that goes and it doesn't really fit this. All you need to do is come up here, find one of the spline points on your fairway, select that spline point, and then select a secondary surface. Select the secondary surface as light rough, and then in there you can also adjust your width. And when you adjust your width, you can make basically an entire thing of light rough that's the exact same width all the way around your fairway, so you don't have to bother with trying to place this in here. Now, I'm going to be honest, I think the reason why your light rough is the way you have it is you didn't turn it off in the course settings. Down at the bottom of your menu, there's a little thing that says course settings. In the course settings menu, you can select fairways you can select rough, and then you can select rough width. The rough width standard is 50, and I think that's what you have it at. And I think that's why we've got just some really weird spots with light rough on your course. I believe that's what that is. If not, then honestly, you just need to restart the light rough. The light rough just isn't working well. But I would highly recommend using the secondary surface feature on your fairways and on your greens because it makes it look a lot more professional when you have even widths of light rough all the way around. Instead of having right here it's a yard thick, right here it's 5 yards thick, up here we have none, over here we have none. It's about consistency. You want to keep your course consistent through and through. Oof, barely cleared those trees.
And here's our second shot on the ninth.
All right, coming up to our green right here. Not a terrible green. I don't hate this one. This flag's a little too close to some yellow. I don't mind the little punch bowl we've got over here. I would say this is probably a little bit too out of control. And again, we've kind of got this fairway thing going on that I don't like. This one isn't as bad. If this was backed up about 10 more yards and then this swell was a little bit bigger, I would say yes. And I would say yes, it makes sense. It works there. But as is right now, I would still say this doesn't work. One of the disadvantages to doing this right here is say somebody wants to play a punch shot from the trees or somebody wants to hit a 3-wood and run it up onto your green. They can't do that here. And it gets very boring when all of your greens are, all right, I have to land it right next to the hole, land it right next to the hole, land it right next to the hole. Now, sometimes it's fun to be able to land a ball 40 yards short and run it up onto the green and kind of have it trickle down. It's also strategic. Sometimes it can play in your advantage because of wind or because of where you are on the course. And that's why typically I try to connect my fairways up. If you play any of my courses, there are very, very few holes that you will find that my fairways don't run all the way into my greens. And usually, if it's not, it's because there's hazards in the way, in between. Again, I'm just going to say it again, don't do the fast green speed, especially if you're a new designer. It can create some weird spots. And when you're already having problems designing, having fast greens is just not the go. The screen is a no-no. Just in terms of shape, all your other greens have been a relatively consistent size and shape. Some of them may get a little funky here and there, but they've all been relatively the same size. We now have a green seemingly out of nowhere that is as big as a football field, and it has a lot of really jagged lines. Like I can tell when you were building this green, there's a spline point right here, there's a spline point right here, spline point here, spline point here, spline point here, 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 and it just makes your hole look very ugly for the most part. Also, I don't mind the rocks right here. I just don't like it how you see how you've got the light rough running up over it. And I think this is what I was talking about earlier by you didn't turn off your light rough in your course settings. You need to turn off the light rough in the course settings before you start building a course or before you publish the course because it creates weird looking things like this. Like, personally, if I were to place light rough on this hole, I would have a spline that runs around this and into the green instead of going over it because it'd make it look a lot better and then have it caress the entire outside of the green. Honestly, I would select a secondary surface on this green as light rough, turn it up to about a 50 size, and then 50 size would give you enough width all the way around the green and make it look good. Looking at it from the tee, I do like that we can see the pin here. I don't mind this hill in front, honestly, for having a blind shot to a 150 hole. In my opinion, to make this hole good, I would have put a bunker right here, and I would have made fairway around this entire outside area. Maybe not the front, but this entire outside back, I would have had some fairway that kind of has some roll-offs into it. Looking at the whole green, way too flat. I mean, you've seen how some of the other greens have been on this course, how you have some huge slopes. Huge slopes aren't great, but also too flat greens aren't great. Like this green is huge and there is nothing interesting going on anywhere on this green. Like, I mean, nothing at all. There's nothing that's going to catch anybody's attention here. It's just very boring. There's not a lot going on. It's just not a good green in general. Personally, I would just restart this green. It's just, it doesn't make sense when taking into consideration the rest of your course. The rest of your course has got medium-sized greens, and then this thing is just huge and flat. It kind of seems out of nowhere. It's also weird how this is the first hole we don't have fairway or bunkers on, which isn't always bad. Like, you don't have to always have fairway or bunkers. It's just kind of weird. It's just kind of seemingly out of left field, this hole. All right, coming up here. See, this one, I almost like this a lot. I almost like this tee shot a lot. Just knock down this little hill right here so I can see the fairway and I can kind of see the green. I would like to be able to see this bunker. I don't like that it's kind of hidden behind the hill, but I guess I get it. Strategic wise. All right, looking down our fairway right here. Again, I'm this is the last time I'll say it. Just you need to fix the light rough. I can now that I'm kind of seeing more of the course, I can tell you just didn't change your light rough width in your course settings. Just make sure you do that before you start playing. And if you're gonna keep it on, make sure you actually add light rough to the course to make it look good. I also noticed that you've been adding markers. If you're gonna add markers, make sure it's always in the center of the fairway. You see how this you've got this one centered, and then this one's not really centered, and then this one back here isn't really centered. I guess that one might be centered, but you want to keep them centered and along the line of play for the most part.
And this is a tough call.
A
Not sure
bad
this
shot
one.
right there.
Let's be careful.
All
Get
right.
out of here.
See, this is kind of more what I was looking at when I was telling you, like, you want to have 20, 30 yards in between. This is a lot better. I'm okay with this. I still don't like how you just do a straight line. I would rather see this be a nice little smooth semicircle come across here instead of just a jagged straight line. But it's not that bad. Looking at our green here, again, this is one of those greens where we've just got way too much yellow, orange on it, and red. My typical rule of thumb is I like to have 50% of the green or more be pinnable. Right here, we've probably got 30% of the green pinnable. We've got pinnable spot up here and a little pinnable spot right here. Other than that, there's nothing else. Um, Again, I don't mind this punch bowl, but I think you're kind of doing this by accident because you're not actually flattening the areas around the green. One of the big things new designers don't realize is they'll come in and they'll design a green. They'll make a green. A green isn't just a green. It's a greens complex. And a complex means everything around the green and involving the green. You can't just have a good green. You've got to have a good greens complex to make it look good. So that means the bunkers around it, the fairway that ties into it, everything like the slopes outside of it are part of that greens complex, part of the way that green plays. So for me, with this hole right here, I would probably come in here. I don't mind this actually. This big hill with bunker combo. I actually like this. I would probably have fairway run up into here, into this side, and then around the left side, I would have it probably come into here real smooth. I would make these hills a little bit bigger, a little bit larger to kind of make it seem like, oh, I can bounce off these hills and kick onto the green. Out here in the back, I would probably add a little fairway area back here for people going long so that they can end up in this and have a chip back up on. And for me, that's how I would design this green in terms of like changing the area, the green complex, and everything like that. And for the green, I would definitely kind of flatten this area out, make this a little bit more pinnable. I do like this little pinnable into a dropped area over here. And this slope back here, I would get rid of almost completely. I think it's just way too big and way too over dramatic. I would just have this area kind of be the end of the green. And then if you're going to go into this bunker, it's going to take you going long. I don't like greens that just take people straight into bunkers. It's be a little bit cheesy sometimes. All right, let's go ahead and smack one on down there.
Most out of that one.
Also, really quick with this bunker, you see how you've got this little bitty spot of water? You want to avoid that. Uh, I think this bunker was a full circle. It was a big circle. And the reason why it does this right here is because this area is too low. You need to raise this spot up because it's effectively at water level. I mean, you can see there's a little bit of water holding in here. Uh, this is just a no-go. You want to avoid this anytime you can. This is part of the reason why I hate building close to water or down at water level because you have to deal with this a lot. All right, let's go ahead and knock one over by the flag real quick.
Fourth shot.
Sorry if I'm seeming a little harsh. I'm just noticing a lot of things and I want to point those out because I do genuinely want to help and I want to help people learn. I try not to seem like aggressive or rude when I'm making critiques and stuff. It's just sometimes there's a lot of things I want to critique and talk about. Tees don't make any sense at all. This is just wild. If you're going to have tees next to each other, you want to have them be in a dead perfect straight line. Because when you have stuff like this, is something you're never going to see at a real golf course. Because what happens if I thin this shot? I'm going straight into a marker and then I'm bouncing 60, 50 yards over this way. Or I'm hitting this marker and I'm bouncing way over this way. It's just kind of realistic to keep all of your things in more of a straight line, you know. In terms of our fairway, don't mind it again. I still don't like this right here. Uh, kind of odd. You've had all these bunkers depressed and in little holes like this, and then we just have one random bunker that's just sitting on top of everything. This is kind of what I was talking about in terms of consistency. You want to keep your holes consistent. You want to keep all the bunkers kind of the same. You want to keep all the fairways kind of the same. Now, that doesn't mean exactly the same. It means close enough to where they have a style. They're stylized. When you have all your bunkers like this, and then you all of a sudden have one like this, you kind of have ruined the style. This bunker just kind of seems out of like it's out of nowhere. Doesn't make a lot of sense, you know. This green, I don't mind this green. I actually like the contours and stuff in it. It's small enough to where it's okay to be simple. Uh, I will say you put this pin a little too close to the edge of the green for my liking. It's still got the 9 square going on, but I think this is just a little bit too close. Typically, for me, I usually like to have two full squares and then like this little half a square in between the edge of the green. I think you're just a little bit too close there.
This one's looking
All
good.
right.
All right, let's pop this.
Yeah, I don't mind the screen.
And
Simple,
ripping out a
kind of
birdie,
smaller.
bogeying the last
Probably needs a little bit more
hole.
going on around it, but other than
Tees
that,
up
it's
now
okay.
on a par 4.
All right, this is what I was talking about again with try to avoid getting your fairway line too close to the water because the water's edge kind of chooses what the fairway looks like, and it's very, very weird and jagged here for sure. Oh, what a terrible shot.
Well,
Someone needs to go to the
nothing.
range.
This one's your third. Well, you
All
made
right, let's take it over the
contact
trees
with
this
that one.
time.
Now this one's going through some brush. Okay, we are in the
Uh,
stuff
the
currently.
screen is bad. Not a lot I can say about it. I don't mind the shape. The shape's not terrible. Just the contours are so screwed up. Uh, you don't need this random flat spot here. You don't need this little buritz right here. This high spot makes no sense. This low spot taking people down to here makes a little bit of sense, I guess, but not really. Uh, this spot's dead flat. I would basically, if I were to come in here and build a screen, I would reflatten this entire thing, get rid of all these weird slopes. And this is such a small green to where you don't need a lot going on to actually fit all your pins in here. Really thinking about this, I think a decent way to do this green would be to have this back part over here, this tier kind of be a low, this tier up here kind of be a high, and then I would probably put a little caressing high slope over here to kind of bring people around to settle their balls back here. So I have a little slope here, a little down slope into this back area, and then that's probably just about it. I might put a little knoll over here. And for fairway, I'd probably wrap my fairway up and around, and hell, I don't even think I'd put any fairway behind this green. But in terms of this, it's just way too slopey, way too much going on. Your pin is way too close to a yellow-red slope over here. So, yeah.
Ooh, this one might be
Ooh,
over
I
the
didn't
edge.
realize what club I was hitting.
That's okay.
I thought I just went up one club. Looks like I went up like 4 or 5. Again, the fast greens were very frustrating.
Your sixth shot here.
What was that? I've never seen my character do that before. That's funky. Alright.
5 feet to go.
Get it on in there
Okay,
and
moving
on to the
on.
next. Alright.
Heads up.
This is the hole that we saw that's up on top of the giant hill. I understand that I believe you said this is a fantasy course, but even if it's a fantasy course, stuff like this is a no-go. This is how I can tell that you forgot to change off your heavy rough and light rough. I could tell that the light rough setting was still on because you have this weird little light rough width that makes no sense, but you also have your heavy rough on. In your course settings, if you go to rough settings, in heavy rough, you can also select your heavy rough width. Heavy rough isn't something that you have to turn off, but you can kind of see how it makes these straight lines, and then it's these straight lines down the entirety of your hole. That's why you have this right here, light rough. That's why you have this right here, light rough. That's why you have this right here, is because of that setting. All right, looking at our fairway here, I'd be nice to be playing around this slope. Your drives are landing all the way up here, though, so it kind of makes this slope unplayable. Also, I don't really like it. It's a little bit too big. You don't need this slope to be this big to kick balls across. This is almost so big where I'm afraid you might get kicked into the rough all the way over here. Also, just these little lows right here, you need to get rid of these. Unless you're going to put a pond there or a hazard area there, these are just unprofessional because it's just a little tiny spot of water. And it can be very weird if you end up in
Looks
them.
like we're gonna be in the fairway.
Alright, down closer to the green. I'll see this from the tee. I
Yards
don't
to
like
the
these trees. These trees are way too close to the green. They're in the fairway. You almost never want to have trees in the fairway. If you're going to have trees that come into play like this, you want to have one specimen tree, usually. Maybe two. When you have just a bunch of trees like this, it seems really odd. It doesn't really seem right, you know? There's just too much going on. This green, way too much slope. Again, I like to have 50% of the green pinnable. You have got this little strip up here. I would say maybe 15% of this green is pinnable over here. You want to have some tiers to it, a little bit more going on. Again, this is just a green without a lot going on. Again, I don't understand how you did your fairways. You like bring them up and you have this little spot on a lot of them. I don't know why this is here, how. I had to look at some of your other fairways, but like at the ends of your fairways, you have this little spot and then it's straight across your fairway and then straight back down. I just don't really like that. Also, you've got this kind of weird little width thing right here. Like this isn't a straight line. For some reason, it's like a smaller width. I couldn't explain that. We got a tree on the green here. That's definitely a no-go.
Oh, you missed the approach.
It's also just something you would never see. I understand it's a fantasy-esque golf course, but you would never see a tree anywhere near a green like that. I mean, I guess you could, but it's something they typically avoid because the roots mess with the green.
Judged on that one. Teeing off here.
All right,
on
again,
par
can't really
four,
see the
not
fairway.
long.
You've got an obvious little water spot right here. I would always make sure you fix that. Make sure you play test your courses because you'll find a lot of those little issues. And I think this entire spot right here is like raised just slightly. See, I can see the line right here. So the height on these two isn't exactly the same. I can tell there's a line that runs straight through this. When the height on your water is exactly the same, it's seamless. Alright, we got a little layup hole here. Just smash one right down the middle into the water.
Going down into the water.
Alright. Our green here. Very small green. Pin is borderline too much. I don't really like all this going on back here. It kind of seems pointless. Again, there's just too much going on the screen for how small it is. Your green contours just really haven't made a lot of sense. I mean, it kind of feels like you put a green in one spot and you kind of just work with the land. But when you work with the land, you want to like have some rhyme or reason to it, not just I'm gonna flatten this spot and flatten this spot and that's my green now. Greens, in my opinion, are something that take some of the longest time to make on the course properly because you have to spend a lot of time sitting there like messing with all the little fine contours and making sure it's playable from this angle, playable from this angle. What does it mean if I'm over here on this side of the fairway versus this side of the fairway? What happens if my player goes long or ends up in this bunker? It's a lot of thought that goes into greens other than just placing a shape on the ground and then flattening a couple spots and putting a pin down. Alright, again, this is just, it's kind of getting old that you just have circle bunkers kind of seemingly just in the middle of fairways all the time, either in the middle or very protruding onto the fairway. I'm going to have some different shapes and some contours and some reason to them.
This is our third shot.
Alright, this is kind of what I was looking for more with like saying I like fairways around greens. In terms of the reason why this comes up here, this stops at this width, this comes out here, there is really no rhyme or reason again. This area, I don't mind over here to the left. I like the width you've got over here. It's enough area to kind of have people end up in here in these little lows. Don't really like the top area though. Again, it's one of those spots where I feel like you place the green down, you flatten this spot, and you flatten this spot, and you call it a day. There needs to be more going on your greens, more rhyme and reason. Like, you can't just throw a green on the ground and call it a day. Like, you have to create this entire area. You have to sculpt this entire area. I can tell that this is just lazy designing in terms of what you actually placed here and what you made. I mean, there's just nothing, no, not a lot of thought that looks like really went into that green. All right, getting a little runoff.
Right, back in
And
the
again,
middle.
I mean, this area is just dead flat. Can't have dead flat areas. Pin way too close to a major slope. I mean, there's a huge slope right here, not 3 feet from the hole. You got to keep your pins away from major slopes like that. This hole, beautiful location for a hole, beautiful spot for a hole. I can't see the hole. I should be able to see what I'm hitting into. It makes it make a lot more sense, basically. Again, it's just one of those ones where it's just way too many step downs, way too slopey. I don't like that you're punishing players by sending them all the way into the water right here. It seems a little bit too aggressive, especially when your flag is like 2 feet from a big slope that's going to take them all the way off into the water. If I go even a little bit long here, I'm dead. And with these fast greens, it can be hard not to go long. Like right here. Ooh, so lucky that stopped.
All right, here's a 23
All right.
footer.
Knock that one on up there.
Here we go. This next one for par. And let's bring this.
All right, coming on to 18. I can see this fairway finally, but I think this is way too sloped. I think every shot I hit's going to end up down in here. And again, with your fairway lines, like, I don't understand what you're doing with these lines. I mean, this is just a zigzag. You want to have, like, some rhyme and reason to these designs. You don't just want to be placing lines down. You want to have, all right, I'm going to make this area come out wide. I'm going to have it come thin right here to bottleneck the player's drives. I'm going to bring it back out wide here because it's far enough away from the tee where people aren't going to go for it. Come back in a little bit. I'm going to put a bunker right here. This side, if I'm designing the left side, I'm probably making it thick right here, bottlenecking again right here, and kind of bringing it out along this line and just making some smoother curves. You just have these really jagged lines in here where I can tell, like, when you build these fairways, you don't put a lot of splines down. You might put a spline here, spline here, spline here, spline here. When you're clicking and making these splines, you want to be clicking a lot. Like, I'm clicking like 20, 30 times to make a curve. Like, it makes the curves a lot better looking instead of just all these really jagged lines all over the place.
Well,
All right, terrible shot. Par 5 is just to climb up the hill. No bunkers, no trees, nothing interesting. You gotta have 9 and 18 be the most interesting holes in the course. They don't always have to be, but they need to be.
I'm having good thoughts.
I'm also curious. Oh, that was that par 3 that we just played? I was wondering what that was all the way out there in the middle of nowhere. Is that par 3? I'll say this one, I think you used a predetermined shape right here. You didn't spline a green, you just placed a circle, and it looks like an oval. This is what I mean by you need to spline your shapes and make them yourself. This green, again, doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of your slopes and stuff. You've got a pinnable area here and a pinnable area here, and that's it. You just need to have some more rhyme and reason into these greens.
Heading left.
My shots today have been miserable. If we go all the way down. And we do.
And nicely done. We're back in the fairway. Okay, here's your 5th.
Alright, get me out of here, John. Get me out of here.
It could be a good one.
Alright, got it in there. Smooth little 87. Alright, overall on the course, I would say your major thing you need to work on is your greens. You have some greens that are completely unplayable. You need to look at some real courses and look at how they design their greens and why. Look at some really good architects and how they design their greens. Having greens that just have random slopes and random flat areas all over the place don't really make a lot of sense. I can tell just by looking at your course, you're either a very new designer, which I can almost guarantee you're a brand new designer, like you haven't been designing super long, and I have a feeling you're kind of younger because I'm looking at this course and I'm seeing a lot of me when I was designing 7 years ago. back in the old golf club. It comes with some learning. It comes with some figuring out why designers play stuff, where they do, what actually looks good when designing. And that's kind of a lot of it, is just figuring out why the designers do what they do and kind of bringing that into your own work. Uh, as I said, green's way too crazy. Not really a lot of rhyme or reason into them, and that also kind of comes to your fairways and your bunker placements. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason into your design. It kind of feels like you're just placing a green somewhere and placing a fairway and then just calling it a day. You're not really adding any design elements into the hole. You might slap a bunker here just because it's at the driving distance, but there's really no reason for that bunker to be there other than it's the driving distance. Like, you need to have some really, really big reasons to why you're placing stuff where you are. Other than that, I think there's too many blind shots out here. I can't really see a lot of the holes. It just, you need to be able to see stuff because that's what keeps your players interested. When they are playing every hole and it's just blind shot after blind shot after blind shot, it gets boring. I mean, think about if you were to go play a real golf course and every single tee shot is just a blind shot where you can't see the fairway. That's not usually fun. Not most of the time. Unless you know the course, it's just not fun. Uh, Other than that, I did like the island setting. I liked the routing of the course. Uh, I'll say your trees. I didn't mind the trees that much. They weren't super noticeable when you were playing, but I would definitely kind of add some more variety of trees in there, and maybe try not to make your forest so thick. I think you might have ran out of objects because you made your forest very, very thick. Other than that, I think that's really all I have to say about this course. Uh, just keep grinding, man. Honestly, this game takes a lot of time to learn. It takes a lot of time to get good at this designer. But if you keep your nose to the grindstone and you keep practicing and keep getting better, you can become some of the best designers. I've seen some designers in this game come from nothing to some insane courses. I mean, it just takes a lot of time. It's not an easy program to learn. Designing in general is very hard to learn, but just keep on moving forward. Hopefully take some things out of this video that I said and introduce them into your course in the future. And hell, man, you make another course, just let me know. I'd love to see an update. Other than that, guys, I'm still open to more courses. I'm trying to knock stuff out slowly but surely. I've got about 5 courses in the pipeline right now, but if you have any more, please let me know, and I'll try to get around to them here soon. Other than that, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys next time. Later.